The market recovers from Monday's fall amidst choppy trade. Nifty gains 100 points with commodity stocks leading the buying. Bank Nifty provides support with a near percent gain. Midcaps outperform with midcap index advancing close to 1%. Relief for the rupee as the Indian currency pulls back from the recent lows above 85.80. The strength follows global dollar weakness with the dollar index pulling back to 108.2 levels after having crossed 109 last week. The BPCL board gives its approval for a listing of Maharashtra Natural Gas, a key city gas distributor player in Pune. Brokerages expect the IPO to lead to value unlocking for MNGL's owners, IGL, BPCL and GAIL. Biocon rallies 7% on a drug approval in Japan and Jefferies upgrade the stock. ONGC rallies 4% as CLSE upgrades the stock, expecting higher production and improving realization. Zomato slips close to 5% after Jefferies downgrades the stock, citing rising competition in quick commerce as a key risk. Hello, good afternoon. You've tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18 and I'm Vinny Motiwala in the Mumbai studio. A look at the markets today, recovered from the day's lowest point. As of now, holding on to gains of almost 0.5% in trade. 100 points up is what the Nifty. 23,725 is what the Nifty is standing at. Sensex too, similar tandem. We're seeing that recovery coming in from the day's low, managing to hold on to those levels we've seen. So keep an eye out on that. In terms of contributors coming in, Reliance is supporting the up move today. We have ICICI Bank, ONGC and Tata Motors that is managing to support the up move for the Nifty 50. So surely keeping an eye out on those names. What's not doing well today? Look at the IT pack. All the names in terms of the drags coming in for the Nifty 50 today are from the IT side. So TCS, HCL Tech, Infosys, Tech Mahindra also among the names coming in. And that is why Nifty IT, like you can see on your screens, is also down in trade by 0.6%. So yes, Nifty IT is the only sector today that we are seeing that is trading in the red, given that all the heavyweights in the Nifty IT are falling in trade. Let's pull up the top gainers today. Nifty Metal and Pharma. That's the one that's shining bright today in trade among the top sectoral gainers. So Nifty IT Metals is also managing to hold on to good gains of 1.2%. Nifty Pharma also more than 1% of gain that we're seeing coming in. And a lot of individual names in these sectors are also buzzing in trade. In Pharma, we have a lot of news flows that come in around Biocon, Zydus Life we're seeing. So overall, there's a bit of a buying that seems like coming into the Nifty Pharma space. So keep an eye out on that. But that's how the market setup is looking like today. A lot of individual stocks that we'll take you through later on in the show as well. But we'll get started right now by talking about the rupee that has staged a recovery today. Now, bouncing back from Monday's low, what is happening here? Lata is joining in with us to give us more details on this front.
It's actually a brilliant recovery that we have seen, going by the normal standards of the Indian currency market, where 5, 10 pies, 10 would be a very big move, 5 is par for the course. Today we have actually seen the rupee go all the way to 85.66, and yesterday around this time it was at 85.84. It's a near 20 pies recovery that we have seen. Now, the reasons for this is because things got overdone yesterday. The market became so terribly one-sided. And that was because of the changes in the global environment. All of last week, the dollar index was at 109 plus, 109.2, if you please. And then it came down to 108.8 yesterday. But now 108.2 means, a good 1 point fall from last week, Friday levels. Likewise, the yuan had changed color, or the PBOC's approach to the yuan on Friday. They let go that 7.29 mark, which was seen as, something they won't give up. And it gave up 7.30, came to 7.32 on Monday. The big fear was, now, is this a start of a trend? Like, do we see 7.35 very soon? That's not happened. For 48 hours, not even 48 hours, actually for 3 trading days, including today, because trading has almost ended in China. 7.32 has stood, 7.36 on the CNH, which is the Hong Kong yuan currency. The other overestimation came from the feared FPI selling. The way the markets fell yesterday, the expectation was there was another 4,500 crore of FPI selling. It wasn't like that. It was half of what perhaps the market feared. So all told, the market was so one-sided that now there is actually rupee short covering, or rather in the market what you trade is the dollar. So it was huge long dollar positions which are getting unwound. So looks like today will be a good day for the rupee.
Thanks for that, Lata. But do stay on with us because the Ministry of Statistics will announce the first advance estimate of GDP for the current year at 4 p.m. today. The next year's budget numbers will be based on this data, and you've done a poll of economists on what to expect from this data regarding the GDP this year in terms of what are we expecting in terms of estimates. Tell us more.
Well, first up, we need to know that this is the first step of the budget. What the MOSPI announces, the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation announces today at 4 p.m. They're going to announce the first advance estimate of GDP of the current year. Until now, they were only announced the actual GDP up until the second quarter. Now, this is an advance estimate. Now, the point is they give you not only a real GDP growth but also the nominal GDP growth. That is the growth in output at current prices. Based on that, the budget, that is the Finance Ministry, will estimate the next year's GDP, and from that they will estimate the tax to GDP and hence the tax growth, the fiscal deficit to GDP, and hence how much expenditure they can design. So this number becomes important because on this base next year's GDP is calculated. So what does our poll say? Our poll says that the real GDP in the current year will be 6.3%, a shade lower than the 6.4 we got when we did the poll end of 2024. But it's still lower than the Reserve Bank's number of 6.6%. So 6.3 is a bit of a disappointment if it comes that way. But the more important number, like I told you, is the nominal GDP number. There, the poll said it will come up at 9.9%, which means the actual GDP in trillions of rupees is going to be 324.5 lakh crore or 324.5 trillion rupees. Contrast this with what the budget assumed in Feb 1st, 2024, when the budget was presented. It had assumed a 10.5% growth in the nominal GDP to 326.3 lakh crore. So actually the real number may be a little short, which means 4.9% of that number, 326 lakh crore, was the fiscal deficit, which was about 16.1 lakh crore. Now that the nominal GDP is likely to be smaller, if that's what the MOSPI says, 324.5 lakh crore, then actually even this year's fiscal deficit will have to be lowered to 15.9 lakh crore. And on the basis of that 324.5 lakh crore, next year's GDP will be estimated by the budget on Feb 1st. But let's see what the MOSPI says. It will be very closely watched because after that 5.4% second quarter GDP growth, there was a bit of a shudder in the Indian economy enthusiasts. So we will have to see how much the MOSPI assumes by way of recovery in the second half.
Thank you so much for that, Lata. But let's move on. And sources say that the Heavy Industry Ministry writes to Finance Ministry in support of auto industry demand for a GST reduction. And this is on CNG two-wheelers. Parikshit is joining in with us this afternoon to give us more details on this one. Parikshit, what are we expecting here and what are you picking up?
Well, this has been a conversation between the auto industry, especially top two-wheeler makers, and the Ministry of Heavy Industry since June last year. The plea from the auto industry body to the government was this, that CNG two-wheelers can play an important role in two-wheeler penetration in the country and also reducing pollution and helping us meet our emission goals, our lower emission goals as well. The industry body SIAM pointed out to the government that India's tax rates on two-wheelers, which is 28% GST, then you have regulatory costs. That makes it a very high proposition in terms of taxation and a much higher tax rate compared to geographies like Vietnam, Brazil, Philippines, Indonesia, which have the tax rates in the range of 8 to 12%. Having said that, a case was made for reducing GST on CNG two-wheelers. Now, the Ministry of Heavy Industries, which is a nodal body for the auto sector, sent this proposal to the Ministry of Road Transport, Ministry of Environment and Forests, Ministry of Petroleum, Natural Gas, and also the Automotive Research Association of India. Now, all of them have replied to the MHI saying that, yes, they support the industry demand for reduction of GST on CNG two-wheelers. These are vehicles which can run both on petrol and on CNG, which is considered to be a green fuel in the country. Having said that, the MHI has now made a proposal saying that it backs the industry's demand for reducing the GST on CNG two-wheelers specifically from 28% to 18%. But now this is a decision that the Finance Ministry has to take in consideration, the GST Council. It's not a decision that the government can take on its own. It's the Council which will have to take this decision.
Okay, thank you so much for the latest update coming in on this front, Parikshit. Council is the one who will have to take the decision on this GST number for the auto industry. But let's move on, and the government has launched the second round of production-linked incentive scheme, the PLI scheme for the steel sector. Now, speaking to CNBC-TV18, the Steel Secretary Sandeep Pondrik said that the outlay of 4,400 crore rupees is a carry forward of the saving from the first tranche of 6,400 crore rupees. He added that the investment and the capacity threshold have been reduced by 50%. Listen in.
We rolled out the first PLI for specialty steel, and we had substantial savings in the scheme outlay. So within the same scheme, we have invited applications for a second round. We have named it PLI 1.1. The idea is to make the scheme more flexible, more investor friendly, and focus on areas where there is more need of specialty steel. So there are 25 subcategories in the 5 main categories of specialty steels. We have done a few modifications. Number one, we have for augmentation, because many players, they have the basic facilities of steel making. They just augment their capacities in terms of specialty steel. So we have reduced the thresholds, both capacity and investment, by 50%. So we have said that for augmentation, the threshold will be 50% as compared to a greenfield. Secondly, as I said, for CRGO, we have reduced substantially the thresholds. So these are the two things we have done. As far as the safeguard duty is concerned, you know that it is a quasi-judicial kind of a process which the DGTR has to take. They have invited responses, and the last date is 22nd of January. So the DGTR will give its recommendation after that, and then the government will take a call on the safeguard duty. But having said that, it is a fact that we need about $120 billion of investments if we want to remain self-reliant in the steel sector.
Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a short break. But as we slip into break, counting down the budget 2025, India is looking to seize the moment and establish itself as a global economic outlier. The upcoming budget, which will be NDA government's first full budget after the election victory, will be key to unlocking the ambitions of millions of Indians. So tell us what you want from Budget 2025 by submitting your wish list to CNBC-TV18's Budget Box, and tune in on your budget day at the headquarters in CNBC-TV18 for unparalleled insights and coverage on Budget Day this 1st of February. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Let's move on. Our news now coming in from Delhi, which will soon go to polls. The Election Commission of India is all set to declare the poll schedule for Delhi today at 2 p.m. While Delhi is a city-cum union territory, it cuts its outsized political weightage from being the national capital. The Delhi Assembly has a total of 70 seats. The battle is between BJP and the ruling AAP. The Congress, on the other hand, will try to open its account for the first time in over a decade. And in the last poll, AAP won 62 seats, while the BJP won remaining 8. The Arvind Kejriwal-led AAP will look to regain power for the fourth consecutive term, while the BJP will look to emerge victorious for the first time in 26 years. Let's move on to some global update that we have. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced his decision to step down following a 9-year stretch as the country's leader. NBC's Andrea Mitchell is joining with us to report on this front.
Deeply unpopular at home because of soaring prices and ridiculed by President-elect Trump, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau bowing out.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process.
The son of a popular Prime Minister, Trudeau's movie star looks and photogenic young family made him an international star. But in recent years, he was criticized for inflation and immigration. 3 weeks ago, his closest advisor, the Deputy Prime Minister, resigned.
And it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
A final blow, tension with President-elect Trump, who threatened Canada with 25% tariffs. Despite Trudeau rushing to Mar-a-Lago to appease him, Trump blamed Canada for fentanyl and undocumented immigrants crossing the border, and Canada's trade advantage with the U.S., mocking him on Truth Social as a governor, posting many people in Canada love being the 51st state. What's the impact of having a leadership crisis in Canada?
I actually think it probably smooths the relationship, since clearly Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau were not on the same page.
And moving on to some tragic news, at least 53 people have been killed and more than 60 others injured in China's remote Tibet region after a 7.1 magnitude earthquake rocked the northern hills of the Himalayas, also shaking buildings in neighboring countries like Nepal, Bhutan and India in the process. The quake hit the area early morning, with its epicenter located in Tingri, a rural Chinese town known as Northern Gateway to Everest region. And as we slip into the break on that note, it is time to introduce Growth Code, a special initiative by Grow and CNBC-TV18 to further empower retail investors and traders. Renowned investors and professional traders convened at the Grow's Trading Right event on 9th of November, where they shared valuable strategies. Now, here's a snippet of what pro trader Rakesh Pujara, managing partner at Compounding Wealth Advisors, had to share about the reality of trading scams in the market. Listen in.
अभी जो स्कैम हो रहे हैं वो क्या प्रकार के हो रहे हैं कि लाइक सपोज आई एम एन पॉपुलर फिगर इन सोशल मीडिया सो my parody account will be formed and people will be invited to join some course or transfer some amount so that they can trade. Even false demat statement have been shown under the name of some well-known international company. Your holding is shown there, actually your holding is not there. You are being promised कि जो सर्किट होगा, जहाँ पर सर्किट है जो स्टॉक्स में, वो ये प्लेटफॉर्म पे नहीं मिलेगा, लेकिन हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पे आप डालोगे तो आपको शेयर्स मिल जाएंगे. एंड एक्चुअली दे हैव शोन कि वो शेयर्स मिले हैं, डिमेट अकाउंट में उनको दिखाया है, एंड अल्टीमेटली इट टर्न आउट टू एवरीथिंग वाज काइंड ऑफ डॉक्टर्ड. तो ऐसे स्कैम काफ़ी हो रहे हैं. जो काफ़ी पॉपुलर लोग हैं उनके नाम का प्लगराइज अकाउंट बना के कोर्सेज बेचना या फॉल्स प्रॉमिसेस करना.
Thanks for staying tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Now let's move on. CNBC-TV18, Shibani Garat is at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and while looking for a ride, she stumbled onto a technology in the works which provides an alternate approach to autonomous driving. Let's take a look.
Well, imagine this. You hail a car through an app. Your rented car arrives at your doorstep without a driver. Once the car arrives, you manually drive it or let the car drive itself. After completing the trip, you can end the rental in the app, pull over to a safe location to exit the car away from the traffic. There is no need to park the vehicle. Life of dreams, isn't it? Well, at CES, I got to try out something that can soon be a reality. Way, a Berlin-based provider of automotive-grade remote driving, which is tele-driving technology, is offering an alternative approach to autonomous driving. Through the company's app, a user can actually hail a cab or a car. A professionally trained tele-driver will remotely drive the vehicle to the customers or your location. After your journey is complete, the tele-driver will handle the parking or drive the car to the next customer. Well, Way's technology is built on NVIDIA Drive AGX centralized compute platform running NVIDIA Drive OS operating system for safe AI-defined autonomous vehicles. The technology enables Way's fleet to process large volumes of camera, which is, by the way, on all 6 sides of this car, and drive it safely. All the information for tele-drivers is processed real-time through low-latency video streaming capabilities to provide enhanced surveillance and awareness for all the tele-drivers. It's actually tele-drivers driving through a simulator, which is what I got to see here at the control center of Way in Las Vegas.
Okay, and with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Business Lunch on CNBC TV 18. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, Midcap Radar.